Hello, families. We are the Behavioral Health and Management team at Washoe County School District's MTSS department. That stands for Multi-Tiered Systems of Support. We are looking forward to helping you navigate this difficult time while at home with your children. We want to support you and your family to set your students up for success. Here are 5 strategies to support positive behavior and a smoother educational experience for your students at home. First, create routines and structures within your home. Most children have very predictable routines at school, and extended time at home may be difficult for some children without a solid structure. Organize your day so your children know what the day will look like. Include chores, learning time, puzzle time, outside time, and choice activities. Let your children choose what activity they may want to engage in. Any way you can make the schedule visual would also be very helpful. For ideas on creating a schedule with children of varying ages, visit the CDC website. You can find links to our recommended resources and websites in the description below. Second, try the 5-to-1 strategy. Students are experiencing stress with what is going on in the world, as well as adapting to the changes of learning at home. Parents are also in a new role, and their expectations are different. Students are also struggling with this change and may act out in different ways. In this strategy, you give attention to the behavior you want to see, to allow students to learn what is expected. It's easy to give attention to the behavior you don't want, but this often increases that behavior. Give positive attention when your children are behaving well, 5 times more often than correcting their bad behavior. This helps move them in the right direction. You can find examples on the district website. Third, be specific with praise. It is often easy to give a good job here and there, but when you are specific, you give your children a more accurate view of what to work on. State clearly what the child is doing correctly and the positive effect that has. An example of this would be when your child gets right to work on their schoolwork without you having to ask. You could say, "I saw you get right on the computer to work on your math, and that is awesome." You can also add a more personal note such as, "I know math has been a difficult subject for you to master through this digital learning time, and you are working hard at it. It is important for the feedback to be genuine, so that children hear that you really mean it." Good practice for this is, anytime you notice someone in your household doing something helpful, give them specific praise. Try it for yourself, too. Fourth, brain breaks are another strategy to help you and your child throughout the day. Children have difficulty sitting for extended amounts of time and need breaks to get up and move. Brain breaks help kids self-regulate and manage their emotions when they begin to get frustrated. It helps them recognize when they might need a break. They can reduce stress and frustration while increasing attention and productivity. Some examples are jumping jacks, deep breathing exercises, and stretching. GoNoodle.com has tons of videos that are really fun for both kids and parents. Also check out understood.org. A 5th strategy is one often used in the classroom, but which can easily be used at home. Teachers often use reinforcement for students to complete tasks or to maintain appropriate behavior. For example, make a contract that if the student completes 3 assignments, they will earn 30 minutes of digital time. Or use visuals, such as putting a marble in a small jar each time the student is on task. Then the student earns a treat once the jar is full. Remember to keep it age and individual appropriate. Little guys can't keep quiet and on task for much more than 10 to 15 minutes without needing a break, where many older students can focus for 45 minutes. Make sure rewards are something they want and are motivated to work towards, and can understand clearly how to achieve it. Have fun with this. Children and parents too need to relax and recharge. Play games, do puzzles, or cuddle up and read a book. Go outside for a walk and enjoy the fresh air. Cook a meal together. This is a difficult time for the whole world, and we must remember to meet our basic needs as a family. Be sure to check the links in the descriptions below for plenty of resources to help yourself and your family. If you would like any additional supports during this time, please reach out to us. You can email us at mtss@washoeschools.net or call our hotline at 775-337-7566.
A question we've gotten a lot recently with the construction of new schools is, how can we afford to open new schools since we are constantly cutting our budget? Another common question we receive concerns class sizes. Why, for example, third grade classes at one school have more students than at another school? The answer to both questions is allocations. Thank you for viewing this video. The end. Just kidding. The explanation is complicated. We'll do our best to explain it in plain English and easy numbers. The state sends us money based on how many students we have. The state education department looks at our average number of students a few weeks into the school year, multiplies that times the amount they fund per student, and essentially gives us a direct deposit every month. This number is adjusted every 3 months based on updated student enrollment numbers. This per pupil funding is based on our total number of students district-wide, which is around 64,000. But students don't enroll at each school in neat packages of perfect even class sizes. And you can't put half of a class in a room since there's no making halves of a teacher, especially in elementary school where one teacher teaches one class all day. The longer answer starts here. That per pupil funding from the state, plus some local property tax money, goes into our general fund or operating budget. That whole chunk of money covers teachers, bus drivers, utilities, counselors, everything necessary to run our schools. There is additional categorical funding for areas like special education, but that's a topic for another video. The point is, we're funded based on the overall number of students district-wide. Then it is mostly up to us to break that funding up or allocate it as fairly and equitably as possible across schools, teachers of all varieties, and everything else like bus drivers, utilities, and books. To hire enough teachers in time for the first day of school each year, we have to estimate in the spring, 6 months earlier, how many students in each grade will walk through the doors of each school the next August. Coming up with forecasts school by school and grade by grade is a process. Of course, we start by moving the students in each grade up to the next. Then we make an educated guess about how many students may leave. We use data from developers and planning agencies, as well as historical numbers, to guess at how many students will move into new housing developments. Kindergarten is even harder, since we don't have a grade below them to roll up, so we look at things like birth rates in Washoe County. Then we take that estimate of students per school by grade level and spread out or allocate the teachers as fairly as possible. To do that, we use a standard set of class size numbers, or student-to-teacher ratios. Standard class size ratios are set by the state for K through 3rd. The rest are set by WCSD based on what we can afford with our state funding. What's often misunderstood is that these are average class size target numbers. It doesn't mean if you get one more student in one class, you automatically get another teacher. For example, the 20 student class size ratio for 3rd grade comes with a not to exceed number of 26 students per teacher on average at each school, mandated by the state. We'll continue with that 3rd grade example. One of our schools has 72 3rd graders. Divide by 20 based on the 20-to-1 student-to-teacher ratio. Teachers are full-time in these grades and we only hire whole numbers, so we hire 3 teachers. So the school now averages 24 students per teacher, below the maximum size of 26, so we're okay. So when do we hire or allocate a new teacher? Based on both funding and keeping class sizes as equal as possible, we round up and allocate another 3rd grade teacher before the math gets to the next whole number. In this 3rd grade example, the rounding factor, as we call it, is 0.85. So another school that has 78 3rd graders, 6 more students than our first example, divide by 20 and you get 3.9. That's above the 0.85 rounding number, so they get another teacher. With 4 teachers, they now have an average of 19.5 students per teacher, meaning even classes at the same school will have to be slightly different sizes. In the end, this system gives us close to even numbers of students per teacher across grades all throughout our 93 schools. It also lets us hire the most number of teachers possible without overhiring. There is no practical way to divide it up so each school has exactly the same number of students per teacher. We'd have to reject students or constantly rezone and force families to change schools every year or two. Neither of those options is workable or good for students, families, and the community. Sometimes we're surprised by a school having a lower enrollment at the start of school than was projected. If the number is low enough, we have to move a teacher to a different school that came in with higher numbers. We don't like doing this. We know it's hard on students and families to change teachers and classes after school has started. But it's also not fair or equitable to keep other students in oversized classes at another school. These are never easy decisions. We continue to look at refining these formulas to try to minimize these instances. Now that you know how teachers are funded, the answer to how do we pay for teachers for new schools is relatively straightforward. Let's say that the new Nick Polikitis Elementary School in South Reno starts out with 90 third graders. Divide by 20 is 4 teachers, since 4.5 is under the rounding factor of 0.85. But those 90 students didn't parachute in out of nowhere. They came from Brown and Double Diamond Elementary School zones. As those schools will now have fewer third grade students, they will have fewer teachers. The teaching positions move with the students. One important point to emphasize: new schools don't necessarily change class sizes, which continue to be based strictly on the allocations formula and rounding numbers for students per teacher from our state funding. There are still some costs, like utilities, a principal, custodians, and a school counselor, that are new costs that any new building needs. Those are relatively minor, however, and already factored into our budget. These costs are well worth paying for our students and staff to have adequate space to teach and learn, instead of being crowded into makeshift classrooms, doubling up 2 classes in one room, or running school year-round, which we have been forced to do in recent years, before more capital funding to build schools was approved in 2016. There is much more to all of this that we hope to cover in the future. Middle school and high school allocations are even more complicated and do involve fractions of teaching positions because of the different types of classes and schedules. There are lower rounding factors for teaching positions at struggling schools so that we're providing appropriate and equitable supports for all students. But that's more than enough math for now. Thank you for joining us.
Hello, families. We are the Behavioral Health and Management team at Washoe County School District's MTSS department. That stands for Multi-Tiered Systems of Support. We are looking forward to helping you navigate this difficult time while at home with your children. We want to support you and your family to set your students up for success. Here are 5 strategies to support positive behavior and a smoother educational experience for your students at home. First, create routines and structures within your home. Most children have very predictable routines at school. An extended time at home may be difficult for some children without a solid structure. Organize your day so your children know what the day will look like. Include chores, learning time, puzzle time, outside time, and choice activities. Let your children choose what activity they may want to engage in. Any way you can make the schedule visual would also be very helpful. For ideas on creating a schedule with children of varying ages, visit the CDC website. You can find links to our recommended resources and websites in the description below. Second, try the 5-to-1 strategy. Students are experiencing stress with what is going on in the world, as well as adapting to the changes of learning at home. Parents are also in a new role, and their expectations are different. Students are also struggling with this change and may act out in different ways. In this strategy, you give attention to the behavior you want to see, to allow students to learn what is expected. It's easy to give attention to the behavior you don't want, but this often increases that behavior. Give positive attention when your children are behaving well, 5 times more often than correcting their bad behavior. This helps move them in the right direction. You can find examples on the district website. Third, be specific with praise. It is often easy to give a good job here and there, but when you are specific, you give your children a more accurate view of what to work on. State clearly what the child is doing correctly and the positive effect that has. An example of this would be when your child gets right to work on their schoolwork without you having to ask. You could say, "I saw you get right on the computer to work on your math, and that is awesome." You can also add a more personal note such as, "I know math has been a difficult subject for you to master through this digital learning time, and you are working hard at it. It is important for the feedback to be genuine, so that children hear that you really mean it." Good practice for this is, anytime you notice someone in your household doing something helpful, give them specific praise. Try it for yourself, too. Fourth, brain breaks are another strategy to help you and your child throughout the day. Children have difficulty sitting for extended amounts of time and need breaks to get up and move. Brain breaks help kids self-regulate and manage their emotions when they begin to get frustrated. It helps them recognize when they might need a break. They can reduce stress and frustration while increasing attention and productivity. Some examples are jumping jacks, deep breathing exercises, and stretching. GoNoodle.com has tons of videos that are really fun for both kids and parents. Also check out understood.org. A fifth strategy is one often used in the classroom, but which can easily be used at home. Teachers often use reinforcement for students to complete tasks or to maintain appropriate behavior. For example, make a contract that if the student completes 3 assignments, they will earn 30 minutes of digital time. Or use visuals, such as putting a marble in a small jar each time the student is on task. Then the student earns a treat once the jar is full. Remember to keep it age and individual appropriate. Little guys can't keep quiet and on task for much more than 10 to 15 minutes without needing a break, where many older students can focus for 45 minutes. Make sure rewards are something they want and are motivated to work towards and can understand clearly how to achieve it. Have fun with this. Children and parents too need to relax and recharge. Play games, do puzzles, or cuddle up and read a book. Go outside for a walk and enjoy the fresh air. Cook a meal together. This is a difficult time for the whole world, and we must remember to meet our basic needs as a family. Be sure to check the links in the descriptions below for plenty of resources to help yourself and your family. If you would like any additional supports during this time, please reach out to us. You can email us at mtss@washowschools.net or call our hotline at 775-337-7566. Hello, families. We are the Behavioral Health and Management team at Washoe County School District's MTSS department. That stands for Multi-Tiered Systems of Support. We are looking forward to helping you navigate this difficult time while at home with your children. We want to support you and your family to set your students up for success. Here are 5 strategies to support positive behavior and a smoother educational experience for your students at home. First, create routines and structures within your home. Most children have very predictable routines at school, and extended time at home may be difficult for some children without a solid structure. Organize your day so your children know what the day will look like. Include chores, learning time, puzzle time, outside time, and choice activities. Let your children choose what activity they may want to engage in. Any way you can make the schedule visual would also be very helpful. For ideas on creating a schedule with children of varying ages, visit the CDC website. You can find links to our recommended resources and websites in the description below. Second, try the 5-to-1 strategy. Students are experiencing stress with what is going on in the world, as well as adapting to the changes of learning at home. Parents are also in a new role, and their expectations are different. Students are also struggling with this change and may act out in different ways. In this strategy, you give attention to the behavior you want to see, to allow students to learn what is expected. It's easy to give attention to the behavior you don't want, but this often increases that behavior. Give positive attention when your children are behaving well 5 times more often than correcting their bad behavior. This helps move them in the right direction. You can find examples on the district website. Third, be specific with praise. It is often easy to give a good job here and there, but when you are specific, you give your children a more accurate view of what to work on. State clearly what the child is doing correctly and the positive effect that has. An example of this would be when your child gets right to work on their schoolwork without you having to ask. You could say, "I saw you get right on the computer to work on your math, and that is awesome." You can also add a more personal note such as, "I know math has been a difficult subject for you to master through this digital learning time, and you are working hard at it. It is important for the feedback to be genuine, so that children hear that you really mean it." Good practice for this is, anytime you notice someone in your household doing something helpful, give them specific praise. Try it for yourself, too. Fourth, Brain breaks are another strategy to help you and your child throughout the day. Children have difficulty sitting for extended amounts of time and need breaks to get up and move. Brain breaks help kids self-regulate and manage their emotions when they begin to get frustrated. It helps them recognize when they might need a break. They can reduce stress and frustration while increasing attention and productivity. Some examples are jumping jacks, deep breathing exercises, and stretching. GoNoodle.com has tons of videos that are really fun for both kids and parents. Also check out understood.org. A fifth strategy is one often used in the classroom, but which can easily be used at home. Teachers often use reinforcement for students to complete tasks or to maintain appropriate behavior. For example, make a contract that if the student completes 3 assignments, they will earn 30 minutes of digital time. Or use visuals, such as putting a marble in a small jar each time the student is on task. Then the student earns a treat once the jar is full. Remember to keep it age and individual appropriate. Little guys can't keep quiet and on task for much more than 10 to 15 minutes without needing a break, where many older students can focus for 45 minutes. Make sure rewards are something they want and are motivated to work towards, and can understand clearly how to achieve it. Have fun with this. Children and parents too need to relax and recharge. Play games, do puzzles, or cuddle up and read a book. Go outside for a walk and enjoy the fresh air. Cook a meal together. This is a difficult time for the whole world, and we must remember to meet our basic needs as a family. Be sure to check the links in the descriptions below for plenty of resources to help yourself and your family. If you would like any additional supports during this time, please reach out to us. You can email us at mtss@washowschools.net or call our hotline at 775-337-7566. Hello, families. We are the Behavioral Health and Management team at Washoe County School District's MTSS department. That stands for Multi-Tiered Systems of Support. We are looking forward to helping you navigate this difficult time while at home with your children. We want to support you and your family to set your students up for success. Here are 5 strategies to support positive behavior and a smoother educational experience for your students at home. First, create routines and structures within your home. Most children have very predictable routines at school, and extended time at home may be difficult for some children without a solid structure. Organize your day so your children know what the day will look like. Include chores, learning time, puzzle time, outside time, and choice activities. Let your children choose what activity they may want to engage in. Any way you can make the schedule visual would also be very helpful. For ideas on creating a schedule with children of varying ages, visit the CDC website. You can find links to our recommended resources and websites in the description below. Second, try the 5-to-1 strategy. Students are experiencing stress with what is going on in the world, as well as adapting to the changes of learning at home. Parents are also in a new role, and their expectations are different. Students are also struggling with this change and may act out in different ways. In this strategy, you give attention to the behavior you want to see, to allow students to learn what is expected. It's easy to give attention to the behavior you don't want, but this often increases that behavior. Give positive attention when your children are behaving well, 5 times more often than correcting their bad behavior. This helps move them in the right direction. You can find examples on the district website. Third, be specific with praise. It is often easy to give a good job here and there, but when you are specific, you give your children a more accurate view of what to work on. State clearly what the child is doing correctly and the positive effect that has. An example of this would be when your child gets right to work on their schoolwork without you having to ask. You could say, "I saw you get right on the computer to work on your math, and that is awesome." You can also add a more personal note such as, "I know math has been a difficult subject for you to master through this digital learning time, and you are working hard at it. It is important for the feedback to be genuine, so that children hear that you really mean it." Good practice for this is, anytime you notice someone in your household doing something helpful, give them specific praise. Try it for yourself, too. Fourth, brain breaks are another strategy to help you and your child throughout the day. Children have difficulty sitting for extended amounts of time and need breaks to get up and move. Brain breaks help kids self-regulate and manage their emotions when they begin to get frustrated. It helps them recognize when they might need a break. They can reduce stress and frustration while increasing attention and productivity. Some examples are jumping jacks, deep breathing exercises, and stretching. GoNoodle.com has tons of videos that are really fun for both kids and parents. Also check out understood.org. A fifth strategy is one often used in the classroom, but which can easily be used at home. Teachers often use reinforcement for students to complete tasks or to maintain appropriate behavior. For example, make a contract that if the student completes 3 assignments, they will earn 30 minutes of digital time. Or use visuals, such as putting a marble in a small jar each time the student is on task. Then the student earns a treat once the jar is full. Remember to keep it age and individual appropriate. Little guys can't keep quiet and on task for much more than 10 to 15 minutes without needing a break, where many older students can focus for 45 minutes. Make sure rewards are something they want and are motivated to work towards, and can understand clearly how to achieve it. Have fun with this. Children and parents too need to relax and recharge. Play games, do puzzles, or cuddle up and read a book. Go outside for a walk and enjoy the fresh air. Cook a meal together. This is a difficult time for the whole world, and we must remember to meet our basic needs as a family. Be sure to check the links in the descriptions below for plenty of resources to help yourself and your family. If you would like any additional supports during this time, please reach out to us. You can email us at mtss@washowschools.net or call our hotline at 775-337-7566. Hello, families. We are the Behavioral Health and Management team at Washoe County School District's MTSS department. That stands for Multi-Tiered Systems of Support. We are looking forward to helping you navigate this difficult time while at home with your children. We want to support you and your family to set your students up for success. Here are 5 strategies to support positive behavior and a smoother educational experience for your students at home. First, create routines and structures within your home. Most children have very predictable routines at school, and extended time at home may be difficult for some children without a solid structure. Organize your day so your children know what the day will look like. Include chores, learning time, puzzle time, outside time, and choice activities. Let your children choose what activity they may want to engage in. Any way you can make the schedule visual would also be very helpful. For ideas on creating a schedule with children of varying ages, visit the CDC website. You can find links to our recommended resources and websites in the description below. Second, try the 5-to-1 strategy. Students are experiencing stress with what is going on in the world, as well as adapting to the changes of learning at home. Parents are also in a new role, and their expectations are different. Students are also struggling with this change and may act out in different ways. In this strategy, you give attention to the behavior you want to see, to allow students to learn what is expected. It's easy to give attention to the behavior you don't want, but this often increases that behavior. Give positive attention when your children are behaving well, 5 times more often than correcting their bad behavior. This helps move them in the right direction. You can find examples on the district website. Third, be specific with praise. It is often easy to give a good job here and there, but when you are specific, you give your children a more accurate view of what to work on. State clearly what the child is doing correctly and the positive effect that has. An example of this would be when your child gets right to work on their schoolwork without you having to ask. You could say, "I saw you get right on the computer to work on your math."
Good evening, everyone, and welcome to our virtual forum. My name is Melina Raymond. I'm the president of the Washoe County School District Board of Trustees. On behalf of my fellow trustees who are watching the forum along with you, we are excited to provide this opportunity to our valued community members, staff, students, and families. It was extremely important to the trustees that we give our community a chance to hear from Dr. Kristen McNeill, our choice to be the Washoe County School District Superintendent. Tonight, you will have an opportunity to hear from Dr. McNeill, and she will share her vision and priorities for WCSD. You will also be able to ask questions, if you haven't already done so, by emailing questions@washoeschools.net. That's questions@washoeschools.net. We, as the Washoe County School District Board of Trustees, recognize that this process has changed from the original plan. After a months-long national selection process with a great deal of public comment, input, and feedback, on March 31st, the board suspended the search and discussed voting to name Dr. McNeill as the superintendent at our April 28th meeting. We are confident that Dr. McNeill is the best person to serve as our superintendent for a number of reasons, and you'll hear more about that this evening. It's about time to start our forum, but before we begin, I'd like to make some introductions of those individuals that are here with us tonight, all of whom are adhering to physical distancing to stay safe. First of all, I'd like to welcome and thank Mr. Kurt Misha, who is serving as our moderator and will be posing the questions to Kristen from all of you who are submitting them. Kurt has led PBS Reno since the fall of 2009. He and his organization are deeply involved in lifelong learning through formal education on and off the air. Support includes Ready to Learn and Camp Curiosity, which are currently helping our students learn while they are not physically in our schools. PBS Reno is a true partner in supporting education and our students in this community. Welcome, Kurt.
Thank you. Thank you very much. It's an honor to be asked. We really treasure the relationship we have with the Washoe County School District as we provide education, as you said, both on and off the air through a number of our platforms. So it's a pleasure to be here. Thank you.
Thank you. We also have Ms. Emily Ellison, the Chief Human Resources Officer for WCSD, who will be selecting viewers' questions for Kurt to ask.
Thank you, Melina, and hello to all of our viewers. As a reminder, please send your questions to questions@washoeschools.net, and I'll work to get them in the queue for Dr. McNeill this evening.
Well, after a brief presentation from Dr. McNeill, Emily will share some more information with you on submitting questions this evening. But before we get to that, I would like to introduce Dr. Kristen McNeill and invite her to share her vision and priorities with all of you. Thank you, Dr. McNeill, and welcome.
Well, thank you so much, President Raymond. This is truly an honor and a privilege to be here tonight with all of you, with all of Washoe County, for our virtual town hall meeting. I'm going to kind of deviate from the structure of this particular presentation. As most of you have probably heard by now, Governor Sisolak has made the directive that schools will not be returning this year. We have prepared a Connect Ed message, and that should be going out to all of our families and our staff. This is a very, very difficult time in our community, in our school district, in our state. And I just want everyone to know how very deeply proud I am of our 8,000 employees and the work that they are doing for our 64,000 students. I was on a Zoom call earlier today at Double Diamond Elementary School, talking with the teachers and the principals, and they were expressing the concerns about making sure, number one, that our students are safe, and that there's food security for our students. And then later on this afternoon, I was on the call with our Student Advisory Council, and just listening to our students and the trepidations that they feel around the uncertainty. So we will be sending out another message later tonight to our staff, but again, schools will not be returning for this year, and we will be putting out further direction as far as graduation, grading, and our distance learning plan phase 3, which I'll talk a little bit about later this evening. So first of all, Thank you very much, Kurt, for being here this evening. I appreciate that. So, who is Kristen McNeill? So, I am a mom. I have two wonderful children, Ian, who is a student at TMCC, and Ever, who is actually a graduating senior this year. She is in the class of 2020. So, obviously, we have a lot of conversations, and so she's right in there in the mix with all of us going through this distance learning. I am a past teacher, always a teacher, but I taught at Smithridge Elementary School and Libby Booth Elementary School. I started teaching at Libby Booth the year that they decided they would go multi-track and go into the Success for All program. So it was a very intense year. I remember that. And then I went into the principal selection process, and I was thankfully named the principal at Lois Allen Elementary School. And then I ended up as a principal at Marvin Moss Elementary School, which was a fantastic, both of those were just great opportunities for me. I then applied for and received the Director of State and Federal Programs, or our grants office back then. From the grants office, I went in to become the Chief of Staff for the school district. I was appointed the Deputy Superintendent, and then most recently in July, I was honored to be appointed as the Interim Superintendent. Some people may remember that I was actually the Interim Superintendent previous to that as well. So these are not strange waters as far as that particular position for me. So a little bit about what my core values are. How do I wake up every single day and what drives me? Every single decision that I make along with our leadership team are based on these four characteristics: honesty, integrity, kindness, and transparency. Without these four characteristics, I can't do the job that we've been doing. And the week that I was named interim superintendent, I went to our leadership team and I told them, this is how I am going to be leading the district, and this is how I expect all of them to be leading our district. And our principals, our teachers, this is everything that we have heard. I believe that all of my decisions, when we're talking about what's in the best interest for the district, what's in the best interest of students, we need to be honest, we need to have integrity, we need to make sure that we're kind to one another, whether that's in an email, especially during this time of physical distancing, and then transparency. If I don't know the answer, I'm going to tell people, I don't know the answer, but I know how to find it. So those are my core values, and that's how I intend to lead our school district for the next years to come. As I became interim superintendent, I knew that there were situations in the district that we had to address. And as an interim superintendent, it's interesting because you position yourself with these guide rails. You can't go out of those guide rails too much because you're in an interim position. But the board was extremely supportive, and we knew we had to make some changes, and we had to make some changes pretty quick. So we put together our pathway to positive progress, and those focused around, number one, our core values: honesty, integrity, kindness, and transparency. We needed to make sure that those were implemented with fidelity. And then finally, we really needed to work with our 5 employee associations. I really believe that we need to have stakeholder input, and our employee association leadership has come to the table, and they have just been outstanding to work with. So we wanted to address low employee morale within our district. I received a lot of feedback and comments. We had casual conversations during the summer and in the fall with employees around the district. We then went into community conversations with our community. We talked with parents, community members, business leaders, faith-based meetings, and gathered all of our information. And that's really how we kind of built the pathway. But we needed to address low employee morale. And really what a lot of that was is just listening. Having the respect to listen to what my concerns are, and going out and having face-to-face meetings, and I've been able to do that, and just the outreach of employees saying that that's all we want, just listen. You may not have all the answers, and that's okay, but just listen to us. We also went out and we started talking about our employees have fantastic ideas. They've got great ideas, and we should share those. So we developed an employee awards suggestion program. And, you know, unfortunately with the current situation that we're in, we had to kind of put that on hiatus, but we've already received many ideas, and I'm looking forward to making sure that we go forward with that program. Special education and services to school. This was continues to be a very high priority in our school district, and we made some reorganizational changes within special education. My big task there was to make sure that we receive direct services to our schools, eliminate the layers, and so if a school needs services, then we need to make sure that we have the right people in the right seats. So we implemented and we went out and we received feedback from West Ed, and so they are our partners in this, working right alongside with our Office of School Leadership. Jen Van Tress, our Area 5 Superintendent, is over special education, and I am pleased to say that we are making progress in that area. I've received feedback from our teachers and our principals that they are starting to see that support come down to the schools. Workload of educators, huge priority within our district, something that we are continuing to work on. Right now with paperwork, I know that when we started with distance learning, people felt overwhelmed. There was just so much. So we are continuing to work around that. Assessments. We heard a lot of feedback from our teachers and our principals, as well as the number of assessments, and can we do that? And so we've worked with the Nevada Department of Education around looking at our assessments. We wanted a balanced assessment system in place, you know, whether we're talking about benchmarks, the Smarter Balanced Assessment, the MAP test. So we're looking at all of that and to move forward as far as, do we need to take some of these tests off of our teachers' plates as well? Increased pay and benefits. I was pleased to report that 4 out of 5 of our bargaining groups we have settled. And thankfully for the governor and the legislature, they supported a 3% COLA. And so our board was very supportive in that fact. And so it's not where it needs to be. I will be very honest with that with our employee groups, but we are working hard, and that's something that we need to continue to push for. Information technology strategic plan. Our district has never had a comprehensive technology plan, and boy, would that have been nice during this time of distance learning. But I will tell you the efforts from our information technology department, our academic operations, we have put forth a huge stakeholder team that is putting together this strategic plan, and I hope to be able to bring that to our board in June on what a comprehensive strategic plan looks like for technology. And that would include ways to be able to fund technology on an annual basis. And then finally, class sizes and allocation process. We heard a lot of information, both in the casual conversations and when we went out to the community, that class sizes were too large. And our board absolutely understands that. I understand that as the interim superintendent. We need to do something about class sizes, especially in grades 4 through 12. It's a measure of state funding, and so we will have further conversations, I'm sure, and questions around that later this evening. And then transparency around the allocation process. It should not be a geometry formula to figure out our allocation process. And so to make sure that our teachers and our principals understand how do we base allocations at the district level. We've said on numerous occasions when we're out in the public, our students don't come around in nice, neat little packages of 20. And so how does that look like from one school to the other to make sure that it's equitable? A few of our academic areas of focus that I'd like to talk about this evening as we move forward. We have a 3-year professional learning community plan, our PLC plan. Our Office of School Leadership, our Office of Academics, Office of Accountability are very much ingrained into the process for this. When we talk about what does it look like when I am a classroom teacher and I have a student that may not be meeting the targets that I have set. And so to allow our teachers and our principals the opportunity to meet with one another, to have those very important conversations. This was the first year of a 3-year plan for PLC implementation, and I'm looking very much forward to the full implementation as we go into the 2021 school year for that. When we talk about assessment review, we want to take a look at all of our assessments and have a balanced assessment system within the school district. In the past, we have been able to take a look at benchmark formative assessments. We have a pilot going on right now in our school district. I'm looking forward to what those results are. But we've all heard it's a national issue as far as too much testing. But, you know, to zero in on what tests are important for our students and our teachers and what those mean. Student voice opportunities. I mentioned earlier today our Student Advisory Council. You know, listening to students is probably some of the best part of the time that I get. They have so many amazing ideas, and just to open your hearts and open our minds to what our students are going through right now. I'm extremely proud of our Student Advisory Council. They have looked at policy. They've looked at safety and security within our school. They've helped us with bullying issues. So I have no intention of pulling back. I want to have a very robust opportunities for our students to have voice in our decisions. Departments working together for the main purpose of supporting our schools. When my phone rings from a principal, you know, our principals just want support, and I've been so proud of our team during our distance learning plan. There's been no barriers. All the walls have come down. Departments are working together. We're picking up the phone. We're communicating. If a school needs something, we're getting to that point where I just feel like the tethers are off, and I knew it that when we got to this point that our team would fly, and they are. But supporting our schools is our priority. We have to support our schools, and requests, they shouldn't have to feel like they have to go through 9 layers to get to the answer. And finally, our improved relationship with Nevada Department of Education. I'm very, very proud of this. Superintendent Ebert has been a phenomenal support since I was named interim superintendent. I can pick up the phone. We're in constant communication, and she and her team have been right at the steering level to help us through our distance learning plan. For operations, you know, so much going on in this area. I mentioned about our information technology, our strategic plan, our human resources under the leadership of Emily Ellison. We want to put into place a very robust teacher pipeline. We want to grow our own. We want to make sure that, you know, we have students coming up through our own system and bring back the excitement to be a teacher. I want to see more graduates coming out of our College of Education, and, you know, the Dean of Education, we have a great relationship. Donald Easton Brooks has made great strides at UNR. We work very closely with TMCC. I'm very excited about all the possibilities. And then working with Emily on diversifying our hiring practices. You know, we would love to have our employee mirror what our students are, our minority population, and so we need to do a better job in that, and I know that that's a concern for the board as well, so looking forward to working in those areas. And then communications. Our communications team, I will tell you, they have been working night and day recently. They're extremely resilient, very proactive. But when I became interim superintendent, I talked about transparency. And if we don't know the answer, we need to be honest with that. But our media partners have been so great as far as, you know, expanding the opportunities for our team to get out there and having conversations with the media partners. And I really appreciate that. Finally, around capital projects, super exciting. Promises made and promises kept. We have Bohatch Elementary School opening in 2021, Marcy Hers Middle School opening, and those projects are on time. I was meeting with Pete Etchart and Adam Searcy a couple of days ago, and they are on time, and we are crossing our fingers, but everything is 100% ready to go there. We've got online Cold Springs Elementary School slated to open in fall of 21. We've got the expansion of Swope Middle School, super exciting, in the fall of 22. And, the piece de resistance of the new Hug High School at Wild Creek, a huge, it's massive. I mean, there's so much earth moving there. You got to drive by it. It's awesome. And then the rebuild of O'Brien Middle School, very exciting. We're going to rebuild O'Brien Middle School from the bottom up, literally. And then the entire process will be completed by the fall of 2023. We'll have our new CTE Academy, so replacing old Hug with a brand new CTE Academy. We're getting those plans in place as far as what the programs will be. Rio Wrangler Elementary in the Rio Wrangler area, we're talking about that coming online. 2 portables for Poliquitas coming online for next school year. 1 portable at Sky Ranch Middle School, and then also at Dunn Elementary. So COVID-19 impacts. Back on March 13th, when you take a look at the process where we are right now on April 21st, it seems like a lifetime has passed. And what our students, our teachers, and our principals, and our entire district, our support staff have been through. We started our second phase of distance learning this past Monday on April 20th. Now that we know that we will be going for the rest of the school year, we will start our third phase of distance learning on May 11th, and we will be getting more information out to our principals and teachers around that. Especially around grading. We have a lot of questions around grading and what that's going to be looking like. The budget impact for COVID. I think we've all heard the severe impacts as far as the revenue, sales tax, property tax, what our revenue system is going to be taking a look at. We had a presentation last week at our April 14th board meeting talking about that. We know that there's going to be stimulus money. Washoe County is expecting in two buckets, around $10 to $12 million in one bucket, and then about $26 million. We're working very closely with the Nevada Department of Education what those applications will look like. But the state has put forth proposals as far as a 4% budget reduction in fiscal year 20, and anywhere from 6 to 14% budget reductions for fiscal year 21. And our budget team, our Chief Financial Officer, Mark Mathers, Lindsay Anderson, our Government Affairs, are working very, very closely to get as much information as we possibly can. And we will continue to make sure that our district employees and our community understands where we're at. Food security and family wellness. Our partners, the Northern Nevada Food Bank, they are along with our own nutrition services team. They are angels from what they have been able to do for our families. Thousands of meals are being put together every single day for food security, and that was one thing that I heard today on the call with Double Diamond. Is to make sure that our families have the food. And people can go onto our website. We've got 20 additional sites that are opening up for food security. We have a food security team that meets every morning. And again, communities and schools has stepped up. Northern Nevada Food Bank, we couldn't do it without our partners in this. Employees and support, I just can't say enough for the heroes. We have 8,000 heroes, and I've said it again, and I'll continue to say it. The outreach that our teachers, our counselors, our support staff are doing, we have a 96% contact rate for our students, 96%, and that's a direct result of what our principals, our teachers, and our schools are doing. And then as we come out and we go into 2021 school year, what is this new normal? I've heard it, phrased as the new beginnings 2.0. I've heard the great pause. there is so much work that needs to be done now until the time that our schools open back up, and I'm sure we'll talk more about that. But we want to make sure, number one, that our students and our staff are safe when we return to school. And what will that look like? Social distancing, staggered start times. All of these are conversations that we're having now. And then lessons that our teachers are learning right now around distance learning. What's working and what's not, and what can we take into this new normal as we go forward. So where do we go from here? Obviously, as the interim superintendent and as your permanent superintendent, I wake up and I go to bed with my core values. That's important to me. Not only as a superintendent, but it's important to me as a person, as a mom, as a sister. Those core values are what I grew up with, and I intend to lead but with those. Our new and updated strategic plan, obviously with Envision Washoe County School District 2020, we will be putting forward a robust communication plan with our Board of Trustees. They are looking for a large-scale stakeholder input process for what our strategic plan is. Currently, we have the 5 goals of academics, human capital, community engagement, transparency and efficiencies, and then safety and security, and to see if those goals are going to be changing. The profile of a graduate. This super excites me. I am very, very excited about this work because this is a pathway. These are competencies that as our students are leaving our school district, what is it that I'm going to need as a graduate of the Washoe County School District? So anywhere from pre-K to grade 12, what does it look like? Career technical education, our options, kindergarten readiness. What does it look like as a 5th grade? There's so much that we're going to be able to do on a profile of graduate, and I think you can tell in my voice that that energizes me. That work I love. Our family engagement process. We have a huge effort within our family engagement, and I will tell you, if you go on our website right now, that wellness, our family wellness website, Delisa Crane and her team have put together so many supports for our family engagement. But making sure that we do more and broader base outreach to our constituencies that we wouldn't normally get to. And we learned that when we went out to our multi-faith and when we, in fact, President Raymond and I, we did a forum. And so our Latino community, our African American community, our immigrant community, we want to make sure that we're getting those voices in the decisions that we make. And then making sure that we have equitable inclusionary practices. And I put inclusionary in there for a very good reason. You know, it helps when we have multiple voices at the table. And our special education students, our minority students, we want to make sure that all voices are at the table when we make these important decisions. Make sure that we are fair and that we're understanding one another. A lot of it is just listening to one another. Community collaboration, I feel that this is a strength of our district, especially within the last year that we've expanded partnerships, that we've gone out, that we've made sure that our business, efforts, our legislators are making sure that we're getting in tune and that we're connecting with them. We want to make sure that we have our nonprofits, whether that's communities and schools, Boys and Girls Club, Big Sisters, Big Brothers, just making sure, because we can't do this job alone, and that is for sure. And so just really making robust partnerships. And then finally, on the horizon, we know that our legislative session is starting. And this is going to be something that's going to be extremely important as we come into February 2021. Education funding, that is a priority. And with all the uncertainties now more than ever, to make sure that education funding is a priority for our state and for our district. We go into the Commission on Per Pupil Funding. Our CFO sits on that commission. That was under Senate Bill 543. And what it does is it takes the place of the antiquated Nevada plan But I will say that, you know, if we replace a Nevada plan, we need to make sure that our new Nevada is an equitable Nevada for all 17 of our school districts. Enrollment growth, we want to make sure that we keep an eye on our enrollment growth. We know that housing costs is a concern. It's a concern for our employees. It's a concern for our families. But we also want to make sure that we put the message out that, you know, the Washoe County School District, we kind of have a saying, is where it's at. We have a family of schools, and we want to make sure people understand what those options are for our families. And then rezoning in our middle schools, moving up into our sixth grade, moving up into our middle schools, rezoning and what those efforts are. So finally, I have, you know, this is really kind of fun. This is a sign that I actually bought many, many years ago at the Reno Rodeo, and it's the Code of the West, and it's what I live by with my core values. Live each day with courage, take pride in your work, always finish what you start, do what has to be done, be tough but fair. When you make a promise, you better keep it. Ride for the brand. I know our communications person loves that, Irene. And then talk less and say more. Sometimes that's hard for me. Remember that some things aren't always for sale, and then know where to draw the line. So I'm very excited to be participating with everyone tonight in our forum. And so I'm going to turn it over to Ms. Ellison, I think.
Yes, thank you for your presentation, Kristen. Before we get started with questions, I'd like to give some details to our audience who are with us on YouTube and Facebook Live this evening. We've already received a number of questions submitted in advance of the event, and we're anxious to be able to get to as many of those as possible. We'll try to answer as many questions as we can, but we are planning to conclude the virtual forum at 7 p.m., and we may not get to all questions. And in an effort to address as many topics as possible, we'll be grouping the questions together to avoid asking similar questions multiple times. We have definitely seen some trends in the questions, and so we've tried to pick one or two from each area that have been submitted so far. I'd like to remind folks as well that if a question could potentially violate federal or state employment laws, we won't be asking those questions this evening. And as a reminder, our entire community, including students and families, has been invited to participate in this event, and so we'd like to keep the questions appropriate for all audiences as well. So for those of you that are watching that haven't submitted a question, please take advantage of this opportunity to do so. You can continue to submit throughout the event this evening. The address to send them to is questions@washoeschools.net, or send them in on Facebook if you're watching on Facebook Live. And from here, I'll turn things over to our moderator, Kurt.
Thank you, Emily, and thank you, Dr. McNeill, for that presentation and for being willing to take on some of the questions here this evening. And we have no shortage of questions that have come in, so let's get right to it. First one, the pace of work in education can be overwhelmingly fast, especially now. How will you know if your decisions are on track, and how will you and your team reevaluate those decisions as you move along?
Great question. You know, I've said before, I will lead with my core values, and that's where my decision base is. What's in the best interest for our students? And sometimes those decisions aren't popular. But the other part of that is getting stakeholder input. We have gone out and we've worked with our employee associations, and I intend to keep doing that. To listen to the voices of our teachers, listen to the voices of our counselors, listen to the voices of our principals, because you know you make a right decision when you've gone out to the stakeholders and you've listened to their input. It may not be the decision that they want, but you have honestly listened to their input, and I think that is so incredibly important as we move forward.
Okay, good. This may be the number one question of the evening based on the announcement that has come down from the governor. Will there be a graduation ceremony for the class of 2020? And if not, is there going to be some sort of online ceremony or recognition for those students?
Yeah, this is such, you know, it is a tough question. And, you know, I was mentioning earlier, we had just gotten off our call, I had to jump off to listen to the governor's message tonight with our Student Advisory Council. And I say this as the interim superintendent, but also as a parent of a senior. There is so much that our seniors have been building up to, and so much that they've missed. Their proms. We started off the year with Senior Sunrise, and we were supposed to have a Senior Sunset. So what does that look like? And, our Student Advisory Council, they came up with some great ideas. So whether we postpone, whether we do a virtual type of celebration, but the big thing is that we talked about closure. And so however that closure is going to be, a combination of the celebration of a virtual format. I was talking to the photographer today of RGJ, and our community wants to help out. They want to be a part of this. So whether we, can put something in our media as far as the celebration for each one of our high schools, I would love to hear some more ideas, but we will make this decision, number one, for the best interests of students and the safety of our students and families. Right. And then just to know that it's the recognition of their hard work and the hard work of our teachers and principals to get them to that point. We've talked a lot in the past about this isn't just about high schools. It's about our elementary teachers and our middle schools and all the work that they've done to get our seniors. But we want it to be special.
Good. Thank you. Mentioning safety, and you touched on this a little bit in your presentation, when the schools get ready to reopen, what measures are going to be adopted to keep people safe and healthy, not only students, but of course parents and staff?
Right. And that's, and it was really important to listen to the governor's message today around the phases, that the governor is going to be looking at, the phase 1 and phase 2, and how that will work in conjunction with our schools. And, we're already making plans as far as protective equipment, so masks, gloves, hand sanitizer. We've already talked, we have a task force, a COVID-19 task force. We meet 3 times a week, but that is something that we're already standing up as a recovery team and what that will look like. When you talk about social distancing, first we need to understand what those guidance are, what the guidelines are going to be when we open schools up. And what does that social distancing look like on a bus? What does it look like in a cafeteria? What does it look like in a classroom? What does it look like in a high school hallway? What does it look like in our music room, PE locker rooms? These are all discussions that are happening across the country. We have 55 million students right now across our country that are experiencing distance learning on one form or another. So these are all very top of mind, very important issues that we need to be putting plans into place. But I do want to assure people that we are having those discussions and we will be very transparent and making communications. I think our parents know by now I am an over communicator. I've had some emails like, stop the Connect Ed messages, enough is enough. But it's important to make sure that they have this information.
So on the topic of next school year, when things get opened up, I'd like to talk a little bit about the attendance policy for next year. There are some who say the attendance policy was too strict before COVID-19. Parents felt they had to send their children to school when they really didn't feel that well but didn't have a fever. Let's talk about that whole attendance issue in light of whatever the new normal is.
Right, and that new normal is going to be really important. And we heard this feedback when I went out to all the high schools this year, and thankfully I was able to do that along with our trustees and our area superintendents to go out to each one of our senior classes, and the attendance policy came up. But I want to make it clear, there's never an expectation that we want a child who is not feeling well in school. And we've responded to several emails, parents feeling that if we had to go back and even going in now that we know that our schools are closed, but even coming into the fall, if we have immune compromised situations, if we have a child that's immune compromised or a family member, we will work with that family. We definitely will work with that family, and we will work with that family's physician on what is in the best interest of our students. But I want to assure people that we consistently will be reviewing policies, and we heard a lot about our attendance policy, but that's also based on federal guidance around chronic absenteeism. And so we want to make sure that our students are in school. You know, school is a little bit different now, but you know, it's where we want our kids to be. And so we wanted to lower the percentage of chronic absenteeism, and we did that based on the federal guidance.
Okay. As the new superintendent, what qualities are you going to look for in your deputy? You have filled that role. What are you going to look for in your deputy?
And that's a great question. I've thought about it, but I haven't thought about it, you know. First, I think it's really important, and we've talked about this with our principal pipeline. We've talked about it with our leadership pipeline. You want to build a leadership team that speaks to succession planning. And so the qualities that I would want in a deputy superintendent would mirror the qualities that I see in my leadership team and that I see in myself, as far as integrity, honesty, kindness, and making sure that you're transparent. However, I also would want a deputy that has the ability to not always agree with me. And if they feel that I'm going down a path that may not be the right, that they tell me, and they say, that's not a good decision. You may want to think about this, Kristen. And you know, so to have somebody that is there by my side, but also is going to be very honest with me, and always has the best interests of students and our district in mind.
All right, thank you. In your presentation, you touched on the morale in the district. This question is asked about the morale of the employee groups after about a 10-year period of upheaval and revolving doors in district leadership. Tell us about how that works for you.
You know, this was one of the things when I went out to our casual conversations. It was palatable. You could feel it. There was a lot of tension in the system, and that's not healthy. It's not healthy to work in an environment like that. I know on a very deep personal level that it's not healthy to work like that. And I am somebody that if you email me, you're going to get a response. It may not be just like right in that moment, right, but I will get back to you. And that was something that was really important to our employees, just to have that personal touch. And I'm not saying that's going to solve all of our morale issues. I still think pay and benefits is a big issue, and that's, you know, something that our board is very concerned about too, but that goes into education funding. But I feel when I'm going out to the schools, when I'm talking with employees before we got to our distance learning, but even during this time, when somebody, you know, emails me and says, I've got a concern, I've got a question, that I follow up. I may not have the answer, but I'm going to follow up and get them the answer. And I think it's just that respect is huge. Respect is huge for our employees, and it doesn't matter whether you're the superintendent. You know, our bus drivers, I was out there on Saturday at Hug High School helping our bus drivers. By God, I mean, they're out there in the front lines delivering packets to our families. And it's just important that everyone knows that we're in this together. And whether you're the superintendent, an aide, a clinic aide, a nurse, goodness gracious, our nurses, what they're doing right now. But everybody is in this together.
And the fact that you said you have settled employment agreements with 4 of the 5 groups is an important step also.
It's an important step, and that's a great point, because we also meet on a monthly basis. Emily and I meet with our employee associations, and then on a quarterly basis, I meet just myself with all the employee association leadership. So if there's questions, we get them addressed. But I will also say with our distance learning plans, to have the input and feedback from our Principals Association leadership and our Teachers Association leadership has been huge.
Let's remind everybody to submit your questions to questions@washoschools.net. And maybe our conversation has sparked another few questions, and we have some time to take those. Let's go on to English language learners, and what are your plans as the superintendent to support those English language learners and really help them achieve their full potential?
And, you know, this is such a great question, especially in our school district. You know, our school district has seen transitions as far as the number of EL students that we have, and we need to make sure that we're supporting them. A lot of that is around professional development for our teachers. And so we changed a model a couple of years ago and to make sure that we had English language teachers in all of our schools, but that our classroom teachers had that support. And so one of the models that we're implementing is co-teaching. So when I walk into a classroom, I don't know who the EL teacher is versus the regular classroom teacher. But we have to make sure that our teachers feel comfortable with that and provide them the professional development around that as well, too.
Okay. Another important question is your opinion, your perspective on dual enrollment with the community colleges and the high schools.
You know, and I think this is, we have a very robust dual enrollment program with TMCC and UNR, but I think this is something for the future as well. I think we're going to see many more dual enrollment opportunities for our students, especially around workforce development and partnering with our universities. I meet monthly with President Johnson and President Hilgersom. We have conversations around what those dual enrollments are, but expanding those opportunities and what those classes are going to be, you know, whether it's welding, whether it's math and sciences, but it's really important to make sure that our universities and our community colleges are at the table when we're making those decisions.
The TMCC high school model certainly seems to have worked.
It does, and you know, we have such a fantastic relationship with TMCC and what our high school students, you know, and it's always very cool, you know, at the end of the year when our TMCC high school students, the majority of them will receive their AA degree before they receive their high school diploma. But those types of relationships, those type of programs, but just expanding that opportunity for our students.
So in this brave new world, the new normal and online learning and distance learning, how do we implement that distance learning and online learning so that everybody can participate either via Skype or Zoom, so they get into those kinds of classes and be able to virtually submit their homework? I would like to have been able to virtually submit some homework a couple of times, and also take exams so they don't lose ground. How do we make that all work?
And that's, you know, that's an issue that's at the national level. The first thing that we need to do, though, is to put efforts out there for connectivity. We have a digital gap, not only in Washoe County, but across our state and across this country, and we need to make sure that broadband services are accessible for many of our families. Thankfully, the Education Alliance was one of our partners in this process, and they have done a yeoman's job on making sure that all of our students have devices, and they're continuing that work. But when we go back into schools, you know, we need to take a look at the lessons that we're learning now around distance learning and a blended approach, you know, to where I may be able to take some of my courses online, but I may want to come in and check with my teacher every couple of days and see how that works. There are so many different types of opportunities out there for our students. And, you know, just talking with our students, what this looks like for distance learning. When we were meeting with Student Advisory Council today, we had one of our students who was having trouble downloading our PDF forms. And so one of the suggestions, Dr. Lamarca gave the suggestion as far as, you know, take a picture of it on your phone and then email it to your teacher. These are all things that we're learning as we're coming into this expansive new virtual world and what that looks like. But connectivity is a big deal for me. We need to make sure that digital gap is taken care of.
Thank you. This is a sensitive question, so I'm going to read it just as it has come in. During the Washoe County School District's public hearing for the removal of the previous superintendent last year, there were two witnesses, one parent and one teacher, who recounted their experiences of supervisory personnel of the Washoe County School District exerting pressure to graduate students who were obviously deficient in their scholastic achievement and should not have received diplomas. They both believe this to be a systemic practice rather than an isolated occurrence. So we'd like to know if there has been any examination and remediation of this issue since that time.
You know, our graduation rates, and we've heard this concern multiple times, and I know it's a concern, but our graduation rates are actually audited by the state. We audit our graduation rates, but they're actually audited by the state. So I stand behind our graduation rates. But one thing that I have not done this year, very specifically, is I have not talked about percentages of graduation rates, because it's more important for me as a superintendent to make sure that our students are ready and prepared to go on to what's coming next, and whether they are serving their country in the military, whether they are ready to go into a career, or whether they're going into post-secondary education. The most important thing for myself and our team is that our students are prepared in order to do that. So the graduation rate, yes, it's a metric. Districts, superintendents are measured by that metric, but it's not something that I've put an emphasis on. And for a very good reason, because our teachers and our principals, when you meet with our principals and their counseling staff, and they talk about going through, they know where every single student is. They know our students that are on track. They know our students that may be a couple credits deficient. They know our students who need some more remediation. And our principals and our teachers know, and our counselors know. And I have full faith that our schools are working extraordinarily hard. And I will tell you that when we're meeting with the state superintendent and the other district superintendents, although we have had exemptions from certain policies regarding our seniors this year, I will tell you that diploma means something, and whether they're going to be crossing a virtual stage or an actual stage, that piece of paper means something to them.
Good, thank you. Year-round school, are we going to consider that in light of the schools being closed now? Are we going to try to pick that up next year? Is year-round school an option? Has that been part of the conversation going forward, even as we get past the pandemic?
And I think that's something that we're going to have a conversation about, you know, and to have that at the board level, for our trustees to be engaged in that conversation around calendars and what that looks like. Part of the issue is that we know that right when we come back, one of the issues is going to be the learning loss and learning gaps, and you know, procedures that we put into place to make sure that it's equitable across the district and what that looks like. And you know, we were just talking the other day about putting an elementary team together, a middle school team, and a high school team with principals and teachers around what the opening of our building, but the academic focus and what that's going to be. That's going to be a huge lift for our teachers, and we need to make sure that we prepare them. But then also, I also want to talk about the social emotional aspect. Right. We're going to need to take time and give our teachers and our principals and our staff and our students time to talk and time to what are the experiences. It's unfortunate, but we know that our families are experiencing loss and grief, and we have to recognize that fact. So before we get to the academic part of this, we need to do a lot of restorative work, work with our counselors, and just to make sure that we are going to be there for our families and our students and let them know that.
We have a question from a parent who says they have a child who is in special education at Jesse Beck, and they say that's a great school, by the way. How do you plan on helping students in special ed continue to get the highest quality of education and with updated technology? And again, how do you do that via distance learning?
And, you know, I have to give kudos to our special education team. When we went into distance learning, that was one of our highest priorities. It was a high priority at the state level as well, too, that those services were there for our students on individual education plans. And our team has gone forth and delivered materials to homes, but as we come out of what this looks like, that one-to-one touch can't stop. And when I was talking about the reorganizational efforts in special education, this is exactly what I'm talking about, the supports to our teachers and our schools and what that means to our families. We've had a lot of conversations around our IEP program, Excelify, and what that looks like. We're putting plans into place as far as making that easier for our families. But a lot of this is around conversations and making sure that our students are supported. But at the district level, we have to do better in making sure that we have those supports for our students and our families.
And in fact, you mentioned IEP. We have a question here that wants to know what the school district is going to do to address legal requirements around the IEPs during this crisis.
And we have a special education team that is making sure that, you know, specially designed instruction is being given to our students on IEPs. That's the law. We have to follow that, and to make sure that those connections are made.
Here's an early on question. It says, will there be an opportunity for kids to get their property back out of the schools? Clean out the cubbies and the desks and the lockers and bring home all that good stuff.
And we actually have a team. 2 area superintendents are in charge of that team. But yes, you know, and this is also text backs coming back to the schools as well, too. But instruments and cleaning out lockers, we're going to be putting plans into place for that.
Let's do a long-range question here. I think we have just another minute or two. What do you think of the idea of splitting this rather large school district into 2 or 3 separate districts, as has been discussed elsewhere in the state, and by that make it a little more manageable?
You know, and I've been here a long time, and that's not something that's new. That idea has been, you know, bantied about. But the thing that, you know, we have to take into consideration is the tax base and the revenue base for that. It looks very different when you're talking about a smaller district and how those revenues are going to be coming in. And that's a big part of a school district, is how are those revenue streams going to be structured. And so that has to be at the forefront. I think our district personally is at the right size. You know, 64,000 students. We're a large district. You know, when you talk about the state of Nevada, you know, you obviously have Clark County, which is the 5th largest school district in the nation. I think the last time we checked, we were around the 34th largest district, so we're a large district. But I think with the capabilities that we have now in place, our team that's in place, I feel really good with where we're going to be going.
Thank you very much for answering these questions and for your presentation. The hour is getting late, so let me turn things back over to Emily.
Thank you, Kurt. And thank you to everyone who tuned in tonight to hear Dr. McNeill's presentation and to participate in this Q&A process. I want to thank those of you that submitted questions. I want to thank those of you that submitted questions that we didn't have an opportunity to get to, but hopefully we got close to many of the topics that were brought up this evening. And I would like to remind folks that between now and the Board of Trustees meeting on April 28th, there's still an opportunity for people to submit public comment. That information will be provided to the board prior to the meeting on the 28th, and those public comments can be submitted through the email address publiccomments@washoschools.net. There's also some information on our homepage with how to do that if you didn't have a chance to jot down that email address. And again, the Board of Trustees would like to encourage folks to submit public comments between now and the 28th. Again, just want to thank everyone for your input and participation in our virtual forum. And Kristen, do you have any parting words you'd like to provide?
Just thank you very much for this opportunity. It was a privilege to be able to do the virtual forum, and I appreciate President Raymond staying way back there. And I also want to do a shout out to Colleen DeLong and our entire communications team. John is around here virtually, so thank you so much. And thank you so much, Kurt, for being here tonight. I really appreciated you being here. And then to everyone, I love you. Be safe. Wash your hands, social distance, and we're going to get through this together.